My name is Emily Carter, and if you met me today, you'd probably think I was born lucky. From the 34th floor of my office in downtown San Francisco, the skyline feels like mine. The glass towers glitter in the late afternoon sun, and the hum of the city below vibrates like a pulse I can control with a single decision. My assistant just dropped off an itinerary for tomorrow's investor dinner, and the silk sleeve of my blouse glides against the polished desk as I flip through it. Everything about this moment feels deliberate, controlled, untouchable. And yet, beneath that calm surface, there's a truth I've carried in silence for years. A truth that still burns when I let myself remember. The vibration of my phone breaks the stillness. A name flashes across the screen, a name I haven't seen in years. My chest tightens, fingers hesitating above the glass before I swipe to answer. It's my cousin Ryan, the same one who once laughed at me for playing businesswoman on my old laptop. The same cousin who, in one careless act, pushed me out of my own home and forced me to fight for everything I have now. His voice trembles. "Emily, we need to talk. It's about the family." I lean back, crossing my legs, lips curving into something between a smirk and a sigh. Family. Of course. If only he knew the irony. Because years ago, they sold my laptop. And now, I own the tech company that made it. I was 19 the day it happened. 19, broke, and stubbornly clinging to the belief that my future was worth fighting for, even if no one else believed it. The Carter household was small, 2 bedrooms crammed with too many people, and tension hung thicker than the summer heat in Sacramento. I had saved for months to buy that laptop. It wasn't fancy, just a matte gray model from Weston Technologies, but it was mine. It was my window to a bigger world. At night, while everyone slept, I sat cross-legged on my mattress, teaching myself coding from YouTube tutorials, scribbling business plans in a worn notebook, whispering promises to myself that one day I'd make it out. But promises don't pay bills. At least, that's what my uncle always said. I came home from my part-time shift at the diner, my apron still smelling of grease and coffee, when I noticed the empty space on the desk. The laptop was gone. For a moment, I thought maybe I had misplaced it. I tore through drawers, checked under my bed, even pulled the sheets apart. Then Ryan walked in, smirking, tossing a crumpled pawn ticket onto the table. "Relax, Sam. We needed cash. You'll survive." His words sliced deeper than he could imagine. My throat tightened, my hands trembled as I picked up the slip of paper. Pawned. For less than what I made in tips that week. "That laptop was my future," I whispered, voice shaking. He shrugged. "Dreams don't pay rent." I wanted to scream, to slam the ticket back in his face, but the scream lodged somewhere between my chest and my pride. My eyes burned, but I refused to cry in front of him. Instead, I walked outside, into the dry evening air, my legs moving before I even knew where I was headed. I ended up at my grandmother's porch, where she rocked slowly in her chair, her silver hair catching the light. She studied me quietly, as if she already knew. "They sold it," I admitted, my voice cracking. "My laptop. The only thing I had." She reached for my hand, her skin paper-thin but steady. "Listen to me, Emily. Tools can be taken. Money can vanish. But what's in here?" She tapped her temple gently. "No one can ever sell that." Her words carved themselves into me, more permanent than any scar. That night, sitting on her porch, I made a decision. If they could take my laptop, fine. But they would never take my mind. And I would never again let someone else decide the value of my dreams. The next morning, I started over with nothing but a notebook full of half-baked ideas and my grandmother's words echoing in my head. I picked up extra shifts at the diner, scraped together every dollar I could, and within a month, I bought a second-hand laptop from a dusty little shop on J Street. The screen flickered when it turned on, and the key stuck sometimes, but to me, it felt like treasure. Nights blurred into mornings as I sat on the floor of my tiny rented room, the glow of the screen lighting my face, while the rest of the city slept. I taught myself everything I could: coding, UI design, digital marketing. I failed more times than I can count, whole projects collapsing in frustration, but each failure left behind a lesson. And with every lesson, I grew hungrier. It was during one of those long nights that I stumbled onto an online forum where entrepreneurs swapped advice. I started asking questions, timid at first, then bolder. That's where I met Jessica Lane, a seasoned product manager from Seattle who, for reasons I'll never fully understand, believed in me. "Your ideas aren't small, Emily," she told me once over a late-night video call, her cat walking across the keyboard. "You just need structure. You have the spark. Don't let anyone smother it." Jessica became my mentor. She reviewed my mock-ups, sent me links to resources, and pushed me to pitch ideas instead of hiding them. When I hesitated, she reminded me, "The worst they can say is no. And if they do, try again." I remember my first tiny win, a local coffee shop owner who agreed to let me redesign his website for $200. I poured every ounce of energy into that project, polishing every pixel. When he called me a genius, probably exaggerating, but still, it lit something in me. Soon after, another small business reached out. Then another. It wasn't glamorous. I worked from my bedroom, a mug of reheated coffee at my side, paint chipping for my nails because I couldn't afford manicures like the girls at the diner. But for the first time, money was flowing because of me, because of my mind. I didn't tell my family. Not a word. To them, I was just scraping by, working shifts, paying rent late. I let them believe that. I had learned not to trust their version of support. Whenever I posted on social media, it was vague, a picture of a sunset, a generic motivational quote, never a hint of what I was building. By 22, I landed my first corporate client, a mid-sized startup that paid me more in 3 months than I had made in 2 years at the diner. The day their wire transfer hit my account, I sat frozen in front of the screen, tears rolling down my cheeks. From there, doors opened. Slowly at first, then all at once. Clients recommended me. Jessica introduced me to investors. And one night, after signing a contract that officially made me a partner in a new software product, I stared at the blinking cursor on the screen and whispered to myself, "They took my laptop, but they can't take this." It became my private mantra, the fuel behind every deal I made in silence. By the time I turned 28, my life looked nothing like the girl who once cried on her grandmother's porch. I was the CEO of Weston Technologies, the very company that had built the laptop they pawned off years ago. Through a whirlwind of timing, hard work, and maybe fate, I had clawed my way from freelancer to founder, from founder to board member, and finally to majority owner after a risky but successful acquisition. Every time I walked into headquarters, a sleek glass tower humming with innovation, it felt like justice wearing designer heels. And yet, I kept my success quiet when it came to family. Until the day Ryan called. He showed up 2 weeks later, not alone but with my aunt and uncle trailing behind. They hadn't seen me in nearly a decade. They expected, I don't know, a rundown apartment? Maybe a waitress apron still tied at my waist? Instead, they stepped into the 29th floor of Weston's headquarters, into an office that overlooked the bay. The floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Golden Gate like a painting. The air smelled faintly of leather and espresso. On the walls hung framed patents, newspaper clippings, and a Forbes magazine cover with my face on it. Emily Carter, the woman redefining tech. Ryan's eyes widened first, his mouth half open as he scanned the room. My uncle froze, his jaw tight, while my aunt clutched her purse as though she'd wandered into the wrong life. "Emily," Ryan's voice cracked. This is yours?" I leaned back in my chair, crossing my legs deliberately, giving them a moment to drink it all in. "Yes," I said evenly. "This is mine." My uncle cleared his throat. "We thought you were still struggling. Your mother said you barely kept work." I smiled, the kind of smile that carried both truth and irony. "I didn't keep work. I created it." Silence stretched, thick and heavy. I could see the questions swirling in their eyes, the calculations of regret. "Weston Technologies," I continued softly. "Do you remember that name? It was on the laptop you pawned." My gaze settled on Ryan. "The one you sold without asking me." Ryan's face flushed crimson. Emily, we were desperate. I didn't know. That laptop was my beginning. I cut in, my voice firm. You thought it was worth a few quick dollars. Now I own the company that built it. The words landed like thunder. My aunt's lips parted, her eyes wet. My uncle shifted uncomfortably, unable to meet my gaze. For a long time, none of them spoke. They just stood there, surrounded by proof of what they had once dismissed as childish fantasy. Finally, Ryan whispered, "We didn't believe in you." I tilted my head. "No, you didn't. But I believed in myself." That was enough. The room fell into another silence, but this time the power was mine. I could feel it humming in the floor, vibrating in the glass, coursing through every fiber of me. I wasn't the girl begging to keep her laptop anymore. I was the woman who turned betrayal into an empire. And for the first time, they saw me as I always saw myself. Not as the dreamer they underestimated, but as the owner. The silence in my office stretched until it was almost unbearable. My family stood stiffly across from me, like strangers trespassing in a life they could never have imagined for me. I let them sit in that silence. Let them feel the weight of it. Finally, my aunt spoke, her voice breaking. "Emily, we didn't come here for money. We came because," she hesitated, her eyes darting toward Ryan. "We don't know where else to turn. Things are hard." Hard. The word almost made me laugh. But I didn't. Instead, I folded my hands on my desk and looked at them one by one. "You're asking for help," I said quietly. "From the same woman whose future you sold for pocket change." My uncle shifted, guilt etched in every line of his face. "We made mistakes. We were wrong. We know that now." For a moment, the 19-year-old in me wanted to spit their words back at them, to let them drown in the consequences of their choices. But the woman I had become knew better. Power wasn't in revenge. Power was in control, and in choosing how the story ended. "You'll get my help," I said finally, my tone deliberate. "But on my terms." Their eyes snapped to mine. I turned to Ryan first. "You always mocked me for dreaming too big. You're going to finish college. No shortcuts, no excuses. I'll pay tuition, but only if you graduate. Otherwise, you're on your own." He swallowed hard but nodded. Then I looked at my uncle. "Your anger has poisoned everyone around you for years. If you want my support, you're going to therapy. Weekly. Non-negotiable." His face tightened, but he said nothing. Finally, my gaze landed on my aunt. "You've always put yourself last, burying your own dreams to clean up everyone else's mess. Not anymore. You're going to take the art classes you told me about when I was a kid. You'll use my resources to build your life, not just theirs." Tears welled in her eyes. She covered her mouth, nodding silently. I leaned back, letting the words sink in. "If you agree to those conditions, I'll make sure you have what you need. Not luxuries, not handouts, but tools. The rest is up to you." The room went still again. For once, none of them argued. Ryan looked ashamed, my uncle defeated, my aunt quietly hopeful. I let them stand there, absorbing the reality that I was no longer the girl they had control over. I was the one in control. "Understand this," I added, my voice steady, but not unkind. "I'm helping you because I can, not because I owe you. I don't owe anyone for the life I built. I did this without you." And for the first time, I saw it in their faces, respect. The kind of respect they never gave me when I was 19 with a flickering laptop and a stubborn dream. Now it was my turn to decide their futures. Weeks passed after that meeting, and for the first time in years, my family actually followed through. Ryan enrolled in night classes. He sent me photos of textbooks stacked on his desk, his captions short but telling. "This time, I'm finishing." My aunt called me one afternoon, her voice trembling with excitement as she described the first art class she had taken, charcoal sketches that made her feel young again. Even my uncle, the most stubborn of them all, showed me proof of his therapy appointments, his gruff tone softened just enough to hint at change. I watched all of this unfold from a distance, not hovering, not controlling, just observing. It wasn't about me anymore, it was about them choosing different paths. And strangely, that brought me peace. One evening, Long after the office had emptied and the city outside glowed with headlights and neon, I sat alone in my chair, looking out across the bay. My desk was clutter-free except for one item I never let go of, the faded pawn ticket Ryan had tossed to me all those years ago. I kept it framed, not out of bitterness, but as a reminder. I ran my finger along the edge of the frame and thought of my grandmother's words. Tools can be taken, money can vanish. But what's in here? She had tapped her temple. No one can ever sell that. She was right. They had sold my laptop. They had dismissed my dreams. But in the end, they hadn't sold me. I smiled softly at the thought, the hum of the city blending with the quiet power in my chest. For so long, I carried the hurt of that betrayal like a wound. Now, I carried it like a scar, proof that I had survived, proof that I had become the woman I promised myself I'd be. And as the night deepened, I whispered the truth out loud, not for anyone else, but for myself. They sold my laptop. But now, I own the company that made it. The words rolled through the room like a vow, like closure. A perfect ending to a story that was never